Tēnā koe te whare. Tēnā koutou katoa. Members, when we adjourned for the dinner break, we were debating the Residential Tenancies Amendment Bill, and the Honourable Dr Nick Smith was speaking. He has 5 short minutes remaining.
It's good to come back to the House to speak on this bill that's going to save 1,000 Kiwi lives over the next decade, with the measures to require smoke alarms, Mr Speaker, with the measures to create insulation, with the measures that will greater enable the enforcement of our existing residential regulations, and the provisions that will enable abandoned properties to be able to be returned into the rental market more quickly. All good practical measures that this national government is implementing in this important area. Mr Speaker, I want to take a moment to rebut 3 of the opposition concerns on this bill. The first is they claim the insulation requirements are not tough enough. The bill and the associated regulations require all new insulation work to be done to the 2008 standard. It requires that any older insulation be in fit and proper working condition. It also requires that landlords must, from the 1st of July, include in their tenancy agreements a statement of the standard of insulation under floor, in the walls and in the ceiling. Now, members opposite have argued that this bill should be extended beyond the 180,000 homes that are uninsulated and includes those homes that have got insulation either they're under the 78 standard or the 2001. Now, some hundreds of thousands. And the problem is that the 78 standard gets an 83% reduction in heat loss. The 2001 gets that up to 87%. And the bit that Labor miss is that every cost that we impose on the housing rental sector gets passed on in rents. And we need to be careful that we do not impose more costs than there are benefits. I challenge members opposite. Why, when it comes to catalytic converters in our cars, do we put a new standard on existing but do not require every one of these members opposite, who I will swear will not have cars that meet today's standards, to go back and retrofit? Why, when it comes to earthquake standards, do we have a view that says, no, we're not going to require older buildings to meet today's standards? If you follow the rhetoric of members opposite, they say cost can have no part of the equation, you just got to meet today's standards. Well, they should tell that to owners of earthquake-prone buildings, because they would bankrupt the country. They should tell that to people that have got older log fires. In my view, it simply does not stack up that these are free goods, and that the costs that we would impose on lower-income tenants would be more than the few percentage gain that we have. And here's the further point, Mr Speaker. This bill is going to require 180,000 homes to be insulated over the next 3 years. That's 60,000 per year. Members opposite say that's too slow. Hang on a moment. These are the guys that did 50,000 homes over 9 years. 50,000 over 9 years, and they say that 60,000 per year is not enough. Mr Speaker, they cannot be taken seriously. Now, the second criticism that members opposite have had is they're saying this bill should tackle issues of ventilation, of heating, of sanitary plumbing, of things like safe wiring, of dampness. All those issues are covered in the current housing regulations. The issue, Mr Speaker, is enforcement, and the enforcement provisions of this bill will make sure that we are able to deal with those slum landlords to ensure they meet the standards that are already there. Mr Speaker, there are only 2 areas of Labor's bills on this topic that differ from the government's, and that is with respect to temperature, and that is with respect to the issue of having to have notices on their glass windows to ensure that they are safe. We think that's over the top. We think that's into nanny state. Yes, people may wish to put those in place. It should not be illegal to have a property. The last point I make, Mr Speaker, is I turned the radio on this morning and Mr Little said every bill that Nick Smith has introduced is rubbish. On that basis, I challenge members opposite vote against this bill. They won't, because they know this is a good bill. They know this is a bill that will save lives. They know this is a bill that will make our homes safer, warmer and drier. They know that this is the right sort of practical approach that typifies this government of getting on in an economically rational way, reducing incidences of diseases like rheumatic fever that we are successfully achieving more with insulated homes than any government in the history of this country, and that is why it is a good bill that, despite all of Labor's rhetoric, they will support and get through this parliament, because it will make for a better country, warmer, safer, drier homes.
Members, the question is that the motion be agreed to.
Mr. Speaker.